Will this work? Ah, somebody's there. Good afternoon, it's Caroline Stevens seeking the truth. Totally different subject now, and possibly a bit controversial. This is somebody's perspective about the IBM connection with the Holocaust. And I thought I'd do this as a monologue, and I have not. This is something that I wasn't around during the war, and I have not researched this apart from pass this to two people who do have some knowledge, and please do feel free to study the subject yourself. So, IBM and the Holocaust. Now, this person is a chap called Edwin Black, and he's just written this Centre Perspectives paper a few days ago. It says an executive summary. 20 years ago last week, his book, IBM and the Holocaust Exposed, backed up by a tower of documentation that IBM knowingly organised all 6 phases of the Holocaust: identification, exclusion, confiscation, ghettoisation, deportation, and even extermination. Please do share this video. All of this occurred under the micromanagement of IBM's celebrated chief executive, Thomas Watson, Sr., operating from his New York office on Madison Avenue and later through European subsidiaries. In view of what IBM was able to accomplish on behalf of the Nazis prior to the era of the computer, the thought of what big tech can now do to survey us, to censor us, and control human lives is sobering indeed. Without IBM, there would still have been a Holocaust killing hundreds of thousands. Now, Einsatzgruppen, murder squads, and their militia cohorts would still have murdered East European Jews, bullet by bullet, in pits, ravines, and isolated clearings in the woods. But it was IBM that helped the Third Reich create the industrial high-speed 6 million victims Holocaust, metering ghetto residents out to trains, then carefully scheduling the moving of those trains to concentration camps for mass murder and cremation within hours, clearing the way for the next shipment of victims day and night. So please do your own investigations, but this has been a report written by Edwin Black, and he says he's backed up his story by a tower of documentation. Custom IBM programs controlled the census and registration processes, organised the pauperisation of the Jews, and ensured that the trains ran on time. There was an IBM customer site in almost every concentration camp, and some with tabulating machines and some with card organisers. IBM even engineered Germany's odious extermination by labour campaign, where skills were matched to slave labour needs, and Jews were, let's get my glasses on here, an indispensable and pivotal partner in the greatest crime in history. But to IBM, the Holocaust was just another business project. Watson, a sociopath and narcissist lacking any moral compass, was no stranger to crime in pursuit of his business aims. He had been convicted of extortion in the infamous National Cash Register scandal before he was even handed the reins of IBM. An evidence technicality allowed his conviction to be overturned and Watson to escape prison time. So how did IBM get involved? When Hitler came to power, he wanted to locate and destroy the Jews of Germany, Europe and the world. That required the resources of a computer, but in 1933 no such computer existed. What did exist at the time was the IBM punch card. The punch card was invented at the end of the 19th century for the US Census Bureau, from which IBM stole the technology. The card was a people tracker from its inception. Does this sound familiar, people? You know, we're talking about census, tracking. It was the IBM punch card's use in Nazi Germany that gave birth to information technology, invented by a German-American named Hermann Holreich. This card, about the size of a dollar bill, could store for retrieval detailed information about a person, place, or process, depending on the arrangement of holes on a card, which were punched into rows and columns. The card would be fed into a high-speed reader, and out would come personal information. Prior to the invention of the punch card, you could count on your fingers, your toes, or an abacus, but you could not derive information about the people, processes, or places you counted. But with punch cards, you could count not only the number of people in a room, but how many of them were men, how many were women, how many were Jews, how many were Christians, how many were blonde, how many were brunette, how many were bankers, how many were tailors, how many were born in Westphalia or born in Warsaw, every trait. IBM punch cards then not only delivered total counts, but also detailed personal information about those being counted. The information age, meaning the era of the individualization of statistics, or the identifying and quantifying of a specific person within an anonymous count, was born not in Silicon Valley, but in Berlin in 1933. Now, I didn't know that. The IBM alliance with the Third Reich was no rogue corporate operation run out of a basement. Day in and day out, it was Watson who personally micromanaged all aspects of the 12-year Nazi relationship. Under Watson, IBM eagerly contacted the Hitler regime and made clear that it was the solutions company. We hear this, don't we? Indeed, IBM would supply the means to any solutions the Nazis needed, including the final solution. The first thing Hitler wanted to know was exactly how many Jews resided in Germany. IBM hired thousands to execute a door-to-door racial census. Have you had your census papers yet? Once Hitler had the names and locations of Germany's Jews, IBM created systems to tabulate the data against professional and employment databases, as well as financial institutions, to help Germany systematically pauperize them. Pauperize them indeed. Location data was then used to organize the mass transfers of people from their homes into ghettos. Ghetto residents were then systematically forced into trains to the camps. These trains ran on IBM punch cards and owed their punctual timetables to special IBM scheduling programs. all the work and prisoner data from the concentration camps was fed into a central nerve centre in the T building, known as Section D11, and powered by custom-wired IBM machines. Everything IBM did was custom, specific, and tailored to the Nazis' specific needs. All IBM machines in Nazi Europe were leased with monthly payments. They were insured by American and German insurance companies at their right locations and serviced by repairmen twice monthly on site, whether the noisy, psychopating machines were located in downtown Berlin or at Auschwitz. Hollerith machines were incapable of operating without IBM's custom punch cards, and each card could be used only once. Without a continuing card supply from IBM, the machines would have been like rifles without bullets. In the 20 years since IBM and the Holocaust was published, that's his book, IBM has never asked for a single change to the text, nor rebutted a single fact. Today, fear of what big tech can do to survey, censor, control our lives from China to California has heightened interest in this guy's book and its revelations. The connection is clear. To get a glimpse into our perilous future, we need only look back at what IBM helped Hitler do during the Holocaust, in the era before computers existed. What could a Hitler-type regime do today? And how quickly could it do it with today's high-speed, handheld technology? So to those people who've been asking me about the census forms, could this be history repeating itself? So please do share this video, and please do add any information that you have on this particular story. Thank you for listening, and hopefully the sound hasn't been distorted. They want to know everything about us, don't they? And that's why they're doing the testing in the schools, the DNA testing. It's all been linked together. Sobering, very sobering. Thank you for listening. It's Caroline Stevens, Seeking the Truth. My website is carolinestevens.net. My videos are now being uploaded to Broadcasting the Truth on somebody else's YouTube channel. Please do share. History has a strange habit of repeating itself. Goodbye for now.